Are you ready to embark on a journey of success? To discover your true potential in the untold stories of careers in life sciences? Welcome to PATHFINDER by the Purdue Institute of Inflammation, Immunology and Infectious Disease. With your host, Tommy Soares, discover the untold stories of industry scientists and unveil the secrets to excelling in your career. Thank you for joining us once again, and remember to hit the like button and subscribe to our channel. Welcome, everybody. My name is Tommy Soares. I'm the Director of Scientific Strategy and Relations for the Purdue Institute of Inflammation, Immunology and Infectious Disease. And today on PATHFINDER, I have the pleasure of welcoming Danielle Fette, who is the co-founder and Chief Medical Officer at FetTech, LLC. Danielle stands at the forefront of transforming healthcare narratives through strategic marketing initiatives. With a unique blend of visionary leadership and over 25 years of expertise in medical device and marketing, she has played a pivotal role in establishing FetTech as an industry innovator since its inception. In her dual role, Danielle has spearheaded successful product launches, innovative marketing campaigns, and digital strategies that resonate with both healthcare professionals and end users. She possesses an in-depth understanding of the complex healthcare landscape, leveraging this insight to position FetTech as a trusted and pioneer partner in the industry. Beyond her role, Danielle Fette is a leader in medical device marketing, contributing insights to industry publications, podcasts, thank you, Danielle, participating in conferences, and actively shaping conversations around the future of healthcare technology. She remains dedicated to advancing FetTech's vision, driving a narrative that not only communicates the company's innovations, but also its commitment to improving patient outcomes. Thank you so much for being on the program, Danielle. So nice to meet you.
Yes, thank you for having me. I'm excited about this conversation.
I am so excited too, because I can sense from looking a little bit at your history, I've done a little bit of homework, I can sense that you've had this ambition for biomedical and health and helping people, but I think you have an entrepreneurial bug from the beginning that it has pushed you and propelled you to work in the industry and also to start your own companies and your own ventures. And I am so interested to hear a little bit about, what was it like when you were starting first? I know you went to nursing school, you're a registered nurse, and tell us a little bit about what the time was like then and what got you going in thinking about, hey, maybe I want to do the business side of this as well, especially starting from a nursing school.
Yeah, so that's a great question. I'm a really curious person naturally. I mean, I beat to my own drum from the time I can remember, and I just don't take answers for like what they are. If I really need to have a deep understanding and agree, I guess. And if not, I'm so curious, I'll keep going to persist and find the answers. I always knew I wanted to be in medicine, but school reading and writing was really hard for me. So I did not know how to get to where I am today to be able to help a lot of people heal. But I knew I wanted to go into medicine, and I also knew I was horrible at taking tests. So that was kind of challenging when you want to go into medicine and you're dyslexic. But I did get into college because I was an athlete. And then I kind of talked my way into them allowing me into the School of Nursing. And although nurses, I mean, I have such mad respect for nurses, what they do, thank God for all the nurses out there.
Yes.
But for me, I'm not good at following rules. And I think this is kind of like my entrepreneurial spirit. I don't like checking in and out, being told what to do. And I like beating to my own drum, and I'm more creative. So although there were elements of nursing, I'm so grateful for that I got to experience and learn. I learned a lot about medicine and things I liked and a lot of things I wanted to change, not only as a patient, but as a care provider. So I jumped over to the medical device pharmaceutical side, and I was a clinical specialist. So they paid me to go into the operating room to teach surgeons about cutting edge technologies. So
Mhm.
one of my early on devices I sold was called a pacemaker for the brain to help with Parkinson's and essential tremor. And for 8 hours, we were in there playing with. So basically, the pacemaker, instead of the leads going to the heart, they went into the brain,
Mhm.
and we would be able to control through watts, like change the frequency. The patient was awake at the time we were playing around with the settings. And I just quickly early on realized there is so much more to medicine and to our bodies than what we know.
Yeah.
And my career path, I job hopped probably every 1 to 5 years because of the corporate BS, if you will. I mean, if I'm keeping it real, I mean, it was really hard to care about people, but no, at the end of the day, I was disposable and it was all about the bottom line. It was about the money, right? And when you care very deeply about people and doing the right things, sometimes that doesn't drive well with you as an individual.
Yeah, totally.
Um, so I job hopped, and then I stumbled upon regenerative medicine and just fell so madly in love with the whole field. More because I felt like I got it more than most. It's a very subjective field. You have to like be kind of intuitive to really be able to grasp on to regenerative medicine and appreciate it, because it's not objective. It's not like orthopedic where you put a screw and a plate and a drill and you can fix a hip. It's really thinking outside the box in a creative way. So I got into regenerative medicine. I met my husband. So I was at that point in the sales and marketing side running things. And my husband was on the opposite side of medical device. He's an engineer, and he would create the products that my teams would sell in the hospital. And I remember meeting him and thinking, wow, where have you been my whole life? And not in a romantic way, but more like there's a colleague that cares as much about others as I do and is so passionate about wanting to make a difference.
Mhm.
And we would brainstorm together, and I would say, hey, listen, if we changed this product and tweaked it like this or that, these are the other patients we could help. And then he'd be like a magician and go and create what I would dream of. And together, I'm like, well, we were like the dream team. We helped really advance use of some products he developed.
Yeah.
And somewhere along the way, we put all our eggs into this one basket with this company that we wanted to help um, grow. And we wouldn't sign off on something that would potentially hurt patients, if I'm really being honest.
Mhm.
We ended up leaving the company on bad terms with the newborn. My husband was fired and they let me go. And I'm like, you know what? This is a sign. I really believe that things happen in life to put you on a better path. And we're smarter and more capable. I'm like, we can do this. We can invent better products and bring them to the patients that need it faster than anyone else I've ever met. So
Yeah.
let's do it.
Yeah.
So we started FetTech years ago. I don't know exactly, but maybe 13 years ago. And he created the first regenerative medicine product of its kind. And yeah, now here we are years later with 2 FDA cleared products used in the hospital. And it's really rewarding.
That's awesome. And I
Yeah.
really want to hear about those products. Please, we'll talk about them. But you said a few things in this intro that I want to go and maybe talk about if we can. One thing that you said was that you were an athlete, and I know you and Juliet Hahn also played together women's lacrosse. And being an athlete, though, you got to follow rules. And not only that, but you have a coach that's constant, or coaches that are constantly telling you what to do, what not to do. First of all, tell us a little bit, because I'm so impressed mainly by the work ethic that is built by being an athlete, and the hard, difficult, training and practice and all of that you have to go through in order to succeed, to be a good athlete, and what that does to a person as they're developing into adulthood and start to use some of those techniques into your life, into your work.
Yeah. Well, you learn to be really disciplined and really good under pressure. So when I don't have a lot of things going on, I find myself having to force myself to get grounded because I'm so used to chaos and so much going on. I mean, I was a biology, nursing, and a chemistry minor in college and have
Yeah.
trouble reading and writing while playing lacrosse. So I had to learn how to balance and worked at times as well.
Right.
So you definitely learn time management, but I think the most important thing was being a part of a team and that feeling of leaning on others and camaraderie to get
Mm.
ahead in life. I was very blessed to be on teams where like we really, even though we weren't all best friends, we just respected each other and we helped each other. And we knew there was days you'd have a good day, you'd have a bad day, but let's support each other. And so that kind of carried me through in the workforce. You know, I naturally felt myself as a mentor. I never woke up and was like, I want to be a leader. I want to be a mentor. But whether it was on the field or in my regular careers, even before I got into management or upper management, I enjoy helping other people. So
Mhm.
people naturally would gravitate towards me and ask me questions. I mean, I'm kind of the person in the elevator that like you can be going from the lobby to the 14th floor and someone will ask me a million questions and I will know their life story. So I guess it's kind of like a vibe I put out. But being an athlete definitely helped me get my first job. I remember them saying that they loved how coachable I was. When I first interviewed with Eli Lilly, it was my first job right out of college. They I had family members actually laugh at me and say, don't get too excited. I know you're putting all your money into this expensive suit for this interview, but there's a lot of people that are qualified and this is a specialty role. And we just don't want your hopes up, but go for it. And I remember thinking, I'm going to show you, I'm going to get this job. And I walked in and it was like a model search. First off, I was like, what the heck did I just step into? Everyone was groomed perfectly and bragging about their 10 years experience. And I walked into the room not knowing what I was getting into. But I had several interviews that day by different hiring directors. And what they all consistently told me was that I was very coachable. So, what I didn't know was that the first manager would interview me, ask me a question. And then I answered it probably in a very babbling, long winded way. And then he said, listen, when you answer next time, I want you to restate the question, state the problem, and state the conclusion and just give it to me like matter of fact, like right to the point. I'm like, okay, I'll do that. So then the next round of interviews, like an hour later with the next manager, they must have talked, but I didn't know that. So the manager would ask me a problem solving question. And I'm like, okay. So I answered it and took that direction really well. And at the end of the interviews, that it was like a whole day of rounds. They said, "We're giving you the job. You are the least qualified person in this room, but you're the most coachable. And we love that you played sports because clearly you know discipline and you're a hard worker." So I learned to appreciate having that athleticism and being a part of a team early on. It's something I don't take for granted, and it definitely shaped me to who I am today.
So even though you hated somebody telling you what to do, or maybe you disliked it, hate is a strong word, but
Yeah.
like
Well, a good coach allows you to be creative. So a good coach is going to give you the foundation and they're going to make you work and they're going to make you do the drills and you're going to have to learn what you're going to need to do on the field. But at the end of the day, when you're on the field, I mean, there's times you do plays, but there's a lot of times where you have to use your problem solving skills and your intuition, like that innate sense to just make decisions. And you don't really have time to think. You just react. So there is a sense of freeing like decision making when you're on the field.
yeah,
I
and
think that with me, it's more if I like adding value and I'm creative. I'm really good at figuring stuff out much quicker than other people. So if you're like, Danielle, this is where I want to get to be in a year from now, I could come up with so many different creative ways to get there. And I learned early on that most brains don't think the way mine do. I don't know if that's because I had dyslexia. I don't know if that was I was born with parents that were entrepreneurs. I'm not sure why I have that. But even from the time I was little, I knew how to get out of school. I could get out of things. I could figure out how to sell like lemonade better than other people. So I don't know why that is, but I'm grateful that I have it. My oldest daughter, it's interesting how people are all wired different ways. She actually likes to know what to expect. And she likes to say, okay, I know I'm going to work on these times and this is what's expected to me. That for me would be a torturous job. I don't like to know. I prefer not to know what to expect and to kind of create and go with the ebbs and flows of life. So I think that's what it takes to be an entrepreneur, because every single day there's new challenges, new hiccups, and you have to pivot really quickly and problem solve quickly and be the voice of reason to calm your team down while you navigate through the ebbs and flows of life.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And be able to have that flexibility to know that, oh, we just need to roll over. We need to just keep on moving and keep trying to make progress, even though there are obstacles that keep coming up. But it's so cool that you were able to, even take this coachability trait that you had, and what a wonderful like interview technique, isn't it? Like I think I'm going to use it for my next interviews. I'm going to get a partner to ask similar questions to see how they react. But how wonderful that you were able to get into that experience at Eli Lilly, and it was in the pharmaceuticals, right? It wasn't in the medical devices. That came afterwards when you transitioned to Medtronic. Is that right?
Yeah, I didn't realize it at the time, but my first two jobs were I was with GlaxoSmithKline and Eli Lilly. And looking back, like I'm not a huge medicine person. Like I don't personally like taking pharmaceuticals for myself. I do believe there's a time and a place. And I unfortunately think the society overuses them. But for me, it didn't feel right trying to look, the pharmaceutical companies were not telling us to push drugs on doctors to use them. But at the end of the day, we make commission the more the doctor wrote our script.
Right.
And it just didn't align with me. I just didn't enjoy the job. When I got over to medical device, I really loved it because I felt like I was making a difference in patients' life.
Yeah.
Surgeons didn't learn about these technologies I was selling in school. And I would go into the OR and they were really dependent upon me to learn like the ins and the outs of different medical devices in the OR. And like I could take from multiple thought leaders in Florida, for example, different best practices and share it collectively with doctors in the OR. So what a gift that was, because I'm like, hey, this surgeon over here is doing this technique in the OR. This other one's having really good success doing it this way. I'm just presenting these ideas to you to help your patients. And it was so rewarding because I was truly making a difference. What I didn't like was the layers of corporate BS.
Right. Right. And I think that's what annoys a lot of people too. But did you have like an expense account, access to the credit card to be able to?
Hey, look, I'm not complaining. It was a gravy job. I mean, I really ate really well, went out a lot. I was staying at the nicest hotels and then taking jets everywhere around the world. But I also realized how much money these companies were making to be able to pay us as well as they were and wine and dine us and the customers as well as they did.
Sure, sure. And that, that's probably shocking, but I think also, it's educational for people to hear that aspect as to, what it really is all about and how much knowledge did you actually have to have of the products. And it sounds to me like not only did you have to have deep knowledge of the product, but you also had to be very observant and have clear conversations with these doctors to learn how they were using it. There's many cooks in a kitchen, many different recipes, right? And I think there are different approaches that they take in their practice too, but you were able to like connect them and be able to be a conduit for knowledge being passed on from doctor to doctor, even though you probably like you saw it as like, okay, we're going to help more people, but this you were probably like transferring a lot of great information.
Yeah, I pride myself on being authentic and really honest. So I think the doctors appreciated and could sense I wasn't like a phony baloney salesperson.
Yeah.
Not everyone had a clinical nursing background. I did. I definitely feel like that helped me advance when you can use your gift of gab in combination with having a clinical background, because that was not a requirement to get the job that I had. However, I'm very self-aware. So I know what I know and I know what I don't know.
Right.
So right now, Tommy, if you ask me a question, if I'm telling you I know, like I'm adamant, like trust me, I know. But if there's any ounce in me of uncertainty, I'll say, I think I know, but let me just call someone real quickly and get the answers. So I'm very comfortable with saying I'm not 100% sure. So
Yeah.
my surgeons knew if I was in the OR telling them something that they could trust me. And if not, I would get on the phone, like literally in the OR. This was like dating myself, probably before cell phones. And then I would call whatever resources I needed to get the answer
Yes.
that was required. And I think that's a really important trait in healthcare for doctors, for no matter what your profession is. Be aware of what you know and what you don't know, and not being afraid to use others and other resources to get to the answer. But I would tell everyone listening to this, it's really important, um, when you're dealing with healthcare, to be your own patient advocate and not be afraid to speak up and ask questions. Always ask doctors why they're making the decision to use a certain product versus something else. Is it because the hospital allows it? Is it because it's on formulary? Is it because they are comfortable with that company? What are the alternatives? And not to put them on a spot in a rude way, but knowledge is power. And it's so important as a patient to not feel intimidated and to ask any question that comes to mind. And if something's unsettling in your gut, then maybe find a different healthcare provider.
Yeah. Yeah. And I like that so much because it's so important to ask questions and to be informed, right? They're spending very little bit of time with you, and you probably know what the situation is a lot better. And so the more you empower yourself with information, the better you can take care of yourself too.
Mhm.
Danielle, there's a point in your story where you said regenerative medicine was transformative. Something happened. What was it? Can you go back? Was it a moment, or was there like, did you, I mean, I know for me, regenerative medicine, I look at, a tail of a lizard growing back, or the limb of a frog growing back, something like that, like true regeneration of limbs and tissues and so on. And that's always been super impressive to me. What was it about regenerative medicine that got you?
Well, when I first was introduced to regenerative medicine years ago, I had to Google this. I mean, they were talking 2005. And I was exposed overseas to stem cell therapies.
Mm.
And then I found out you can tissue engineer products. So it's basically using the same biology that's found in our bodies to repair and restore function in an all natural way. So the word all natural really got me excited because I knew through regenerative medicine, you could potentially repair and restore a body part or create a cure to something, but you're not causing injury or damage to the patient. So for me, I was like, oh my gosh, this sounds like Frankenstein. This sounds like sci-fi. But I remember specifically there was a neonate that was born with an open abdomen. So some babies, their skin's really thin and their intestines are actually sticking out. And I remember looking at them and saying, look, this is not indicated for children. But I know if this was my baby, I would use it on them, because if not, there's a high probability they're going to die. And if you use this powder, our regenerative medicine at the time was in powder form, on this baby, you have nothing to lose and everything to gain.
Mm.
And I can remember crying. It brings me to tears to this day, looking at the family and the doctor and being ballsy enough to speak up. And they used the product on this baby, and the baby lived. The
Wow.
stomach closed, and they did it out of desperation, knowing that the baby would die, and they had tried everything. And from that point forward, I was like, I felt like I had magical powers. I'm like, you're telling me that all I have to do is educate people on regenerative medicine and teach them about my product, and there's no harm that can be done. And you can use this from neonates to geriatrics, people with all sort of comorbidities, and we can create healing pathways that I didn't think were possible.
Mm.
Medicine is so much further along that we're not looking to put band-aids on things. We're looking to create cures in an
Yeah.
all natural way. So for me, there's nothing more rewarding in life than being able to help people in ways that can only enhance their lives.
Yeah. Yeah. And without necessarily causing any harm, or even the risk of being able to cause harm, right? Which, again, like, there's so much about medicine that is risky in that way, right? You have an operation, there's always some potential for infection, there's always some potential for something to go wrong. We've heard of they leave a tool inside people or whatever it is.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen the evolution of that. I've seen the evolution of how we count sponges and cloths so we don't leave them inside a body. But
Yes.
with regenerative medicine, um, I'm fascinated with the way the body works in general. And just like people as humans, we thrive in the perfect environment. As little kids, as adults, when we are surrounded and appreciated and we feel love and we're eating the right foods and we have the right outside lighting and we thrive, where our cells thrive too at a perfect environment. So if we can create a perfect environment for cells to thrive, you're going to be bringing down inflammation and you're going to be helping the body restore function in an all natural way so that we as humans are living our best lives. Like, who wants to live sick and not feeling well? The goal
Yeah.
is to live and feel like your best self.
Totally, totally. I agree. 100%. And every day it should be a great new adventure. Maybe like, as you said, in entrepreneurship could be a model for us. I want to talk a little bit about that powder because I am intrigued, obviously, as a scientist, as a biologist. Um, can you tell us a little bit about it and like maybe how is it formulated or how has it evolved? Has that product continued to evolve in its application and so on?
So before we had FetTech, my husband helped develop most of the predominant regenerative medicine products used in wound care and trauma and burns. So
Mhm.
they would use either a sheet or powder form to the patient to repair where there was injury or a wound on the skin, or like hernia repair, breast reconstruction. But all of those were engineered from one tissue source. So not to geek out too much, but each tissue has different components. Each organ in our body has different functions, has different biomolecules. And to date, before we came up with our product, everything was derived from one tissue. So therefore, you were limited to the biomolecules in that one tissue.
Mhm.
And my genius husband said, hey, if we engineered and used more than one tissue, could we get a custom blend of more biomolecules, more of all the good stuff your body could potentially use
Mhm.
to repair and restore function even faster? So he went to town looking at every different tissue, every different organ, and he came up with the best way to use more than one tissue, which is how we came up with the multi-tissue platform, MTP,
Okay.
which is the basis of all our technology. So he created the MTP platform. The first product we came up with and got FDA clearance with was a powder that we use in wounds, trauma, burns. So say you were in a car accident and there was a chunk of your leg on the side of the road. In the hospital, they would use our powder to fill that in from the bottom up and heal the wound. But we think about this for a second. If you can potentially use a product and it recognizes injury and then it signals to your body how to heal and repair and remodel the injury, if we could have made that powder into a liquid form, the sky's the limit because now you have an injectable you could potentially use.
Mhm.
So now what happens if the heart muscle dies, like after a heart attack? Could you potentially inject it to help restore that?
Mhm.
What happens with nerve injury, brain injury, MS, stroke? I mean, the sky's the limit, right? Lung inhalation,
Mhm.
if you have fibrosis or scarring in the lung or lung damage. So my husband all along wanted to take the technology and make it in liquid form so he could administer it in different ways. And to date, all the regenerative medicine products derived from tissue were in solid form, like powder or sheet form. And we didn't know why. I honestly now think that people didn't know how to turn it into a liquid form while preserving the biomolecules. But luckily, I married a genius that knew how to do that. And so now we have it. The first product was, I think it was April this year of 2024, was FDA cleared
Yep.
in liquid form. And we're like freaking out excited. The challenge is trying to be patient because scientific anything takes a really long time. And I'm an immediate gratification kind of gal, but we're working on a lot of various projects and grants to
Yeah.
help and see, can we potentially use it in an IV? Could we potentially inject it? Could we
Mhm.
inhale it and use this kind of technology through the lungs? And then as a result, how does that help people?
Yeah, I love it. I love it. And you know, I've been so fortunate to be able to essentially cover this newest, greatest news about it because of Victoria Martin, because of Juliet Hahn, and now you telling us, from I might need to call your husband and see if we can have him on the program too.
Yeah.
But it's been so wonderful to see this evolution and to see how you guys are progressing, especially because, it's an endeavor that you guys have been doing, yes, for quite some time, but now you're starting to see potential big impact and fruits of your labor for all that investment that you've made.
Yeah, and it's really interesting because historically there's been a segregation in my mind. This is what my thoughts are within regenerative medicine. So there's been cell-based therapies,
Mhm.
and then there's tissue engineered products as well. And the two don't always, I think, appreciate how they could kind of be married together. But Wake Forest, I'm super excited about. They're kind of the regenerative medicine hub. And we just partnered with them, and we're going to have an office there. And we believe that we can use our liquid with cell based therapies to help advance the cell-based therapies faster. So
Hmm.
they're doing 3D printing, for example, to create organs in the
Right,
lab. But
right.
it's only so fast that your cells will grow. If they were to use our liquid with the cells, it will help the cells thrive so that they'll grow even faster.
Mhm.
Or another really fast organoids. I don't know if you or the
Yes,
audience knows about organoids, but there's basically these little human type of organs that you can test other medical products and drugs on.
right.
And right now that's organoids are going to all the pharmaceutical companies, but they're in demand and they take long to grow. And we're going to explore using our MTP liquid with organoids. Can we grow them faster to help keep up with the demand so we can do clinical testing faster?
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And it's so cool to hear the potential progress, and not only progress, but like the broad scope that you guys are painting here as well, because the potential applications are enormous throughout. Do you continue to try to deepen in the wound care, in the wound healing type of division as well?
If I'm keeping it real, wound care is really hard and frustrating because there's a lot of patients we can help, but reimbursement is the biggest obstacle.
Mm,
Right now, our product is predominantly used inpatient because it's covered under the DRG. So when a patient goes to the hospital, a hospital gets one flat fee for whatever reason they code you for being admitted.
yeah,
They will actually profit on getting you out of the hospital healed faster because every day you're in the hospital. And it's so sick to think like this, but this is the reality. So if you're a patient with an open abdomen or a burn, every day you're there, you're eating at the money the hospital is getting for why you were admitted. So of course they're going to want to use an expensive product if it means getting you out
right.
significantly faster. On the outpatient side, hospitals make money if you come every week. And I'm not saying that this is why it's reimbursed or it's not, but it is a reality to why they use it inpatient versus outpatient.
Yeah. And again, I've been a victim. I think we are all victims of the insurance companies that have the medical healthcare system on hold, right? Like they're holding on, and we are all victims to whatever they dictate. I mean,
Yeah.
I know that this is some of the things that you're complaining about, and I totally agree with you. I think there's a lot that we could do if these insurance companies would either come along, or if we can diminish the risk, or we've been doing things that have been going on and on for so long that it's difficult to change, right? It's difficult for hospitals to change, isn't it? Tell us a little bit about that, because I can imagine if you're invited to an OR, you're there to introduce a new technology. My gosh, like what does it take Danielle, to change the philosophy, change the processes, change the approvals, change the insurance, billing, and codes, and like,
It
whoa.
is really hard. And I have found that desperation is usually what drives change.
Mm.
So, for example, if I went to a surgeon and offered a solution and that doctor was not desperate, the last thing they're going to want to do is make time to talk to me and to create change. But if I go to that doctor or if I go to the infectious disease specialist and say, listen, I know inside every hospital, there's a patient keeping doctors up at night. Like, you don't know what to do to heal this patient. They have an open wound. If you let me show you our product, I would be shocked if it didn't work. I have yet to not be able to heal someone. And that's a very profound statement to be able to make in medicine, because medicine just doesn't work like that. So I typically went after the low hanging fruit patients that they were like, okay, well, there's little risk and we don't know what else to do. But this person is also unfortunately draining the hospital funds because they've been in the ICU for, 3 months. So I usually start there, and then people are all wowed. It's almost becomes like a 3-ring circus of, oh my gosh, you healed that patient. How did you do that? And they didn't need a skin graft. Like, all this,
Yeah.
back and forth awesome banter that helped me get into the hospital. But you couldn't just walk in. You had to get clever to get to the right person, to ask the right questions. Nobody likes to be sold to, and nobody likes to be forced to create change. So you have to be really clever about how can you provide a patient value, and how is that going to help the hospital and the doctor. And if you go about it in that approach, it's a win-win for everybody.
Yeah. Do you think it helped you though, having at least the training as a nurse, registered nurse, to have that exposure during your training and know a little bit about what motivates doctors, what motivates nurses? That I would think that would have been helpful.
I think my training really was just being in the hospital and being told no so many times and being afraid. I mean, it's pretty intimidating to every day go to a new hospital you've never been to in a new geographic area. And I mean, I started when I was like 21 or 22. I mean, it's one of those things, being thrown to the wolves and not knowing how scary. I mean, I look back, I'm like, wow, I was able to do that. I'm really proud of my younger self. I definitely played up the fact I was a registered nurse because that gave me credibility with the floor nurses to
Yeah.
let me through to get to the doctor. So I played up the fact, I had it on all my business cards. I'm like, listen, I'm not just, because they viewed reps as like these sales reps, these people in suits. And I can remember, like, I will never wear a suit. If I was a patient on a hospital floor and saw some person in a suit coming in to educate my clinical staff, I would be mad. I would be scared. So I was one of the first that would wear scrubs. I had a couple managers were like, that's not professional. I'm like, really? Well, if we had a nurse present at one of our district sales meetings, would you want them to come in scrubs, or should they be in business casual?
Right.
Like, we have to play the role, right?
Yeah.
So I definitely broke the mold in many ways. I think a lot of nurses have trouble though as sales reps. I tried to hire a bunch, and they were really uncomfortable going to new places, out of their comfort zone, having to get creative to go through the door. So I don't think being a nurse helped me be good in sales, but it definitely gave me credibility. So I knew when to use it and when to not. I think my innate caring for other people and my natural curiosity for wanting to learn medicine so I could help others, whether I had a RN behind my name or not, I think that's what carried me through. My passion of wanting to genuinely help. People can feel that.
I think that definitely has to come across, right? Like, it has to be genuine for it to come across as honest, as real, right? And people need to feel that and perceive that more so than hear it, right? You can't really hear those things. It's more the passion and how you say more than what you say. Um,
Yeah, I mean, there was times, so you have to get a product approved through the hospital before they're able to use it. I've had very predominant surgeons say, this is life or death. Like, I need to use this product. And hospitals said, no, you have to be approved first. Then you have to go through this whole process and sit in front of a board and present. And I can remember earlier on being at the board and telling them all about my product. And then this board giving me reasons why I couldn't come in. And me, like, holding my crap together, not trying to get emotional, but I'm like, okay, listen, we're all going to be patients one day. This could be your son. This could be your husband. What would you want for if you, this was you in the hospital, what would you want after my presentation and everything you know and you've heard?
Yeah.
And then they kind of looked at me. I'm like, at the end of the day, we have to do the right thing. The money will be there. I respect the fact that in the hospital, each department is responsible for a budget, but we have to look at the global picture when we're treating patients. You can't say, oh, in the OR, it comes from that budget. In the ICU, it comes from that budget. We have to do the right thing by patients. And in return, the whole system will benefit,
Yeah.
including the patient. And I kind of would spin things on them and take like the human approach, not the business. I don't really like sales. I actually hate it. But I do like helping people and I like educating others. So I would cringe. I don't think I've ever told people I was in sales. I'm embarrassed by sales and marketing. I just said I'm a nurse. Like even today on the beach, if someone was like, I was at the beach yesterday, what do you do? I usually say I'm a nurse. And then it usually, oh, what hospital? I'm like, I float around and then it kind of comes out, but I don't say, oh, I'm in sales and marketing
Right.
because that's not what motivates or drives me. And I definitely have a stigma to sales and marketing.
It's incredible, your own image of yourself and what you are comfortable with and what you're not comfortable with. But that is definitely a reflection of your own internal philosophy too, of what you find acceptable and not in society, and what we should and should not be doing. I love that, Danielle, and I like how honest you are, at least with me or with us here, and telling us, what are some of these motivations. But it's also a constant balance that I think I've seen from this conversation, that yes, motivation to help people, but also working on the business side of things so that they can, start making things move. And so what's the strategy? Like, are you documenting every single time you put this on a wound, and how long it takes to heal and what the treatment was? Or is that how the company kind of creates its evidence? Educate me a little bit as to what's the strategy to get a medical product out so that people start adopting the product. Is it going to be doctors talking to each other saying, hey, you better use this MTP or Riogel, right? That like you better, because this is helping me, it's helping my patients. Or is it you that is going to have to carry that story through publications, through medical journals and conferences?
There's two parts of this. The first is getting FDA clearance, which takes years and years, and clinical backing, and the binder of clinical testing you have to do to get FDA clearance is pretty substantial. That's mostly my husband's side of the business. And then once we're FDA cleared, then the pressure's on me. Early on, we definitely wanted to capture as many case studies as we could, pictures, because a picture speaks 1,000 words. And to
Yeah.
me, talk is cheap. Like I can tell you all day long about how great our product is, but until you see it yourself, it's actually hard to believe.
Mhm.
And to this day, I'll still use product on like a patient or assist in some way. And I go away like, oh, please help this patient. Please make this work. And every single time I'm blown away because the results are that good,
Mm.
whether it's Rayogel for aesthetics or stem cyst wound powder. And I'm not just trying to beef our company up, but the miracles we're seeing every day are profound. I mean, we're talking about patients that have bacteria, flesh-eating diseases, to autoimmune and major comorbidities, or lack of blood flow to an area. I mean, patients that I never thought could possibly heal, we're being able to heal as a result of our product. So that keeps me motivated and going at night. Each day is overwhelming in the sense there's so many patients to help. And if it was up to me, I'd be like Tinkerbell and giving out free product, sprinkling powder all over everyone. I mean, that's just my nature. I,
Right.
I'm I'm generous to a fault. Like I would give everything away if I could to help people, and probably sacrifice my own life. But at the end of the day, if I don't keep our business afloat from a liability perspective, I mean, we're an FDA cleared medical device. I can't just give
Yeah.
product to patients. It has to go through a licensed provider. And, so there's definitely red tape I have to be careful of. And with every step I make in this business, I say, how can I help more patients,
Mm.
whether that's a decision with marketing, giving away a free product. Every single move I make, I have to say, if this is not going to ultimately be able to help a lot more patients, then I need to pause and reevaluate why I'm doing what I'm doing and maybe pivot. And, there were patients early on that would get my phone number somehow or email, and I would get so emotionally invested. It would keep me up at night crying, patients saying, I have cancer, I'm going through radiation, you're my mom's last hope. And it tears you up, but you can't help everyone. And it's really hard to let go of that feeling. I think it gets easier with time, but it doesn't go away. But you just have to focus on the big picture. If you spend, 2 weeks, morning, noon, night, helping only one person, if you invested that same time and energy elsewhere, could you help potentially 100 patients as a result? So although it's very hard, you definitely, that's where the athleticism, time management, delegating your time really comes into play. And my husband is definitely my voice of reason, which helps because I get suckered in emotionally like the best of them.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's and it's interesting because with the powder, I have friends right now. So we have the first liquid version of our technology is called Regenerative, and we're launching this into the aesthetic world, post laser, post microneedling, to help minimize the downtime after these procedures and capitalize on the injury, helping the skin. Yeah. Anyways, I was in the closet for years. I didn't want people knowing what I could do because everyone would call me asking for powder to help with a wound and I could not help them. So now my marketing team's like, you need to come out, you need to speak about it. The only way in aesthetics to make it is to get the word out and share on social media. And it was a very uncomfortable, unique position to be in, because for so long I dimmed my light and now I'm supposed to shine my light as bright as possible. So my brain's a little confused at the moment, but I am enjoying it. Aesthetics was something that we came up with during COVID because we always wanted to get to liquid form for other indications. But I thought, our skin is our largest organ in our body. We need to take care of it just like we would our kidney or our lungs. It's not just a vein, like, let me look my best. I mean, hey, I'm the first one that wants to look as good as possible. However, I also don't want to age and my skin becomes so frail that I bang it and it gets a skin tear. So my whole thought was, what can we do to help strengthen and protect the skin? And maybe we could explore going into the aesthetic world. And then keeping it real as always, aesthetic, there's a lot of money in aesthetics. So we didn't go into the aesthetic world to cash out like a lot of people, but we knew we had a really good product from helping all these burn patients in the hospital. When you do laser procedure, that's essentially burning your face. So why not use it in aesthetics? And as a result, that money we can then funnel back into other projects like cancer research, nerve, brain injury, spinal cord injury, injecting a heart, all these other things. We did not take outside funding to start our company. And I take great pride in that because I didn't want an answer to a board. I didn't want a board to dictate the decisions we make. I wanted our decisions to be based on advancing regenerative medicine and helping the most amount of patients, which was so crucial to my husband and I. So, playing in the field of aesthetics earlier on is going to help us get there.
Totally interesting. And a brand new field and a brand new industry per se. I'll add, because of what I do, that the product has antiviral and antibacterial properties that are fascinating also to be able to understand from a biological point of view, physiological point of view of what's happening there, right?
Yeah, I mean, that to me is probably the coolest thing that's happened because we're regenerative medicine experts and I know very little about viral. And when we were submitting our first product for FDA clearance, we had to do tests that said, hey, if the tissue you're making your product from had virus, would that transmit to humans? And we couldn't complete this test. Now, we've done this. My husband, and like I said, has worked on many other products used in the hospitals. He never had this problem. So he's like, there's something weird with our product. Like, I'm not sure what's going on, but we're not passing this test. And this was a time like we desperately needed to pass. We needed clearance. We were running out of money. And we found out that our product inactivates envelope viruses. At the time, I didn't know what that was. And I mean, I'm not an infectious disease specialist. I'm not a virologist. So I Googled it and herpes and shingles came up. And I was over the moon excited because I do get herpes on my lip like about once a year. And I filed that away in the back of my head. And I said, hey, next time I get one, I'm going to put it on my lip and see what happens. But that wasn't like our life mission was to heal herpes, although I'm excited and honored we can help these patients.
Yeah.
And then that year, COVID broke out. And my husband said, do you know what an envelope virus is? And I said, yes, herpes and shingles. And he's like, Danielle, coronavirus, Zika, Ebola, Marsburg, the world's most deadliest HIV, hepatitis. I'm like, wait, what? What are you saying right now? And we were so excited, but so on edge all during COVID because we're like, we have the secret and we don't know what to do. And we reached out to the government. And at the time, the government's like, you're not far enough along for us to work with you. But we had this data and we spent our own money to get further data. And the efficacy of our product seemed really amazing. And we knew it was safe. So now, 6 years later, we are working with the government. We are doing testing. We were just in Australia presenting at the antiviral meeting on herpes and shingles. We're doing some work with Ebola and inhalation, some other really cool projects to try to move this project along and help people that have various viral infections.
Totally.
But it will be interesting to see how this all plays out. It's super exciting. But we stepped into this. I mean, we really know little about viral, but it's super fascinating. We believe it works by attaching to the wall of an envelope virus. So picture for the audience a virus with like a shell on it. We're thinking it's somehow we don't know for sure, but what we believe is that it's attaching to the shell of the envelope wall and somehow cracking it or disrupting it.
I think we might be able to help you at Purdue if you ever really wanted to find out what's going on.
Hey, I'm down for that because I said we're partnering with Wake, but they're regenerative medicine experts. So we would love, our philosophy is anyone that can help us advance medicine, we're open to partnering with if the intentions are for the right reasons. And that's been our philosophy as a company. We're really small. We operate very differently. We only have, 6 of us? And we contract out and then partner with the people that are the experts in their field. And that's what helps us grow as fast as we're growing. So instead of us building our own sales force, we're like, there's a lot of good sales forces out there. We created a good product. Let's partner with the sales force that can get it out to the patients that need them. I mean, in the beginning, I was the one selling it, but then you realize like my time elsewhere is better spent. And then same thing with, potentially partnering with you in Purdue. If there's people that can do viral testing, oh my gosh, I welcome it with open arms because that will help us advance medicine faster.
Totally. Danielle, thank you so much. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for opening up and telling us all the wonderful pieces of this whole story and your journey so far. It's been fascinating to hear how you've progressed and how the company is moving forward and all of the potential products that are going to be at least explored with the company and what you guys can do. Danielle Fette, the co-founder and chief medical officer for FetTech, I thank you so much for being our Pathfinder today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Have a great rest of your day.
You too.
Thanks. Bye-bye. Thank you for joining us once again, and remember to hit the like button and subscribe to our channel.